All right, we should be recording and live now. So, hope everyone's having a great day. Who's ever tuning in and watching or listening, and obviously you can probably see if you're watching this on video that we have a special guest, Brittany Hill, here today. So she is a one-on-one client who is working with primarily my assistant coach, Katie Craig, who isn't able to be on here today. It's just so hard getting like three people's schedules aligned to do
Mhm.
something like this. So even just us two getting on, I feel like I was really, really thankful that we were able to. But you've been working with her for the
Mhm.
past roughly what 9-ish months. It was around like November when you got started
Mhm.
with coaching,
Yeah.
and your progress has been incredible. I mean, I know we're going to dive into that, I'm sure, as we continue on. But like you're down 45 pounds roughly since you
Mhm.
started. And I think your story is just going to be really inspiring to a lot of people. So I'm excited, for you to be on here and share that. So
Mhm.
just kind of first off, jump in and let everyone know like a little bit about you, where you're from, what you do for work, what, your life kind of looks like, your life situation, and what kind of maybe like your journey has looked like, leading up to finally getting started with coaching here.
Yeah. So my name's Brittany Hill. I am currently 37 years old, born and raised in Mansfield, Ohio, Lexington, Ohio area. Currently, right now, I am a full-time caregiver. My son, who is 8, he is disabled. They call it spastic triplegic cerebral palsy. So I am literally his lifeline. I do everything for him. Unfortunately, I am also a widow. I actually became widowed at the age of 33. So not only am I taking care of this child, but I'm completely on my own with him. So yeah, it's definitely been a struggle. Definitely since my son was born in 2018. He spent a entire year in the NICU, first year of his life. Um, I had obviously been stressed and gained some weight, but was struggling to find consistency and things that worked. And then after my husband unexpectedly passed away at the beginning of 2023, that really threw me headfirst into this massive spiral with my health, with my hormones. And that's just kind of when everything kind of came to a something's got to give moment, because I just knew that for my son's sake and for my sake, I have family, I have lots of support, but technically I am all my son has. So that's really been the biggest driving factor in my story.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. That he was in the ICU for the first year of
Hmm.
being born.
Yeah, it was
And,
rough.
like, how was that? Like, did you spend, I'm assuming, like, almost all of your time at the hospital? Or, like, did they have certain hours that you were able to, like, spend, in the room with him?
Yeah,
Like, I know
thankfully.
it's a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Thankfully, the hospital that he was at was Akron Children's, and they had a really nice NICU. Actually, it had an area for the parents to stay. The first 6 weeks of his life, I lived at the hospital with him. He was born 15 weeks premature. He was only a pound 14 ounces when he was born, and unfortunately got hit with a tremendous lack of oxygen at birth. And so, yeah, I spent the first 6 weeks there on a very uncomfortable couch. And then I had to learn how to maintain life. I didn't have the stereotypical 12 weeks of maternity leave. I had to split my time because I wanted to be there with him. But I needed to work. I did work full time at Job and Family Services with Richland County, Ohio. And I also knew that we didn't know when he was coming home. And I knew I needed to save time for when he did come home. And when he came home, he had a trach. He was on a ventilator. He used oxygen 24/7. We had a pulse ox. We had a suction. I mean, my home turned into an ICU essentially. I had to go through rigorous training, so did my husband, to even be allowed to bring our child home. And we asked what would happen if we didn't complete the training, and it was your child will be placed in foster care. So it was just you better figure it out. And
Mhm.
so I spent an entire year of my life traveling back and forth. We live an hour away from Akron Children's Hospital. And so I finally came up with the schedule that every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday, I spent with my son in the NICU. And then I had to split my time. And as a mother, that was extremely hard. I had to stay home Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That was my thing. I needed to stay home to just have some normalcy. But Tuesdays and Thursdays were my nights to go up there. And it was leave at 3:30 from work, head straight to Akron, get to see my child and snuggle him for a couple hours and head home. It was the hardest, most exhausting year of my life.
Yeah, I'm sure. And, it's just incredible that like you were able to, and your husband too, learn everything you need to learn to be able to, keep him home, bring him home and everything too. And
Yeah.
so what kind of like just summarize like what kind of help he generally needs now, like around the house too, just so people, and it might not feel relevant, but so people who are listening can kind of know just like what you kind of have on your plate with,
Uh-huh.
doing coaching and the results you've seen too. Cause a lot of times people will think, oh, I have all these responsibilities. Like there's no way I could do coaching or I could, get workouts in a few times a week or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's like really eye opening to see from your perspective of just how much, you do have to take care of him compared to,
Uh-huh.
maybe a child who doesn't have those kind of
Yeah.
limitations. So, like, what kind of help does he generally need, around the house on an everyday basis that you have to help him with?
Yeah, he pretty much essentially think about what you have to do for yourself and multiply it by 2. My son is 8, but he has never been able to sit on his own, stand on his own, crawl, walk. There was a point to where he did learn how to roll, but as he's aged and gotten bigger, the physical toll it takes on him. So even something that we did have that he would roll, he doesn't do much anymore. So that means that 66 and a half pounds and 50 inches tall at 8.5 years old, I have to lift him and move him everywhere. I have to change him. He's, incontinent. He can't potty train. So he will be in diapers for the rest of his life. He cannot physically feed himself. So I have to feed him his meals. I have to puree his food. He has a tube for formula for water. So there's a lot of administering medications. It's just, you name it, I have to do it. It takes me obviously double the time, and the bigger he gets, the worse it's getting, the physical toll on my own body. We do have like a ceiling lift in our home, which we got that early on because I knew my husband was a big guy. My son's going to be a big boy. He's already about, I think he's only like 12 or 13 inches shorter than me. Yeah, it's going to be a the rest of my lifetime kind of job, and I'm okay with that. It's taken me a lot of therapy to get to the point to where it's been a lot of grief that I haven't had normal parenthood. I should be able to see my child being able to keep himself occupied and be able to feed himself and potty train and play. It's literally 24/7 nonstop what I do with him.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's just, it's amazing that, he has such a great mom, though, that will do all of those things and take care of him the way that you
Uh-huh.
do.
Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit more, and I know we're gonna like probably touch on that kind of stuff too later on.
Uh-huh.
Like you had mentioned, you lost your husband about 3 years ago. So about like what 5 years after your son was born. Sounds
Uh-huh.
like we can talk as much about that experience as what you want, but I'm sure that came with a lot of other challenges too. Because now that all of that responsibility taking care of your son was really placed on you,
Uh-huh.
so tell me a little bit more about that, and if that did have a change in like your health status, right? Like, did we see ourselves gaining, weight after that, or maybe the opposite, losing weight from maybe not
Uh-huh.
eating at all, going through the grief
Yeah.
process? Like, what did that look like, and everything? Anything else you feel like relevant to share with that?
Yeah, I know, like I said, there was a lot of him and I both struggled with grief together. We had actually, right before our son was born early, we had lost his father, my father-in-law. His father-in-law or his father knew that he was sick. We didn't know, long story, but we had that loss, and then we had the early birth of our son and the loss of this what we expected to be normal parenthood. And then when my husband died very, very unexpectedly in our home right in front of me, he was never, he helped with our son, but he knew that my role was caregiver. His role was, he was a workaholic. He worked, he did that well. He was the financial one that brought in the money, and that was fine for us. But as soon as he passed, it was the instant panic because everything in our life with our son was just, it's a fight. Not only a fight because of having to, take care of him, but people don't understand the fight that we go through to get him just the basic things he needs. The fight that we had to get a ceiling lift put on our home, because my lower back, I have issues, and I knew that as soon as he passed, I was alone. Like I said, I have family, I have wonderful family, wonderful support, but my lifeline, my husband, we had been together since we met in 2010. I mean, we'd been together for years. And I felt that weight crashing down upon me. And for the first week after his passing, I still I didn't want to be around my son. I never had any postpartum issues after my son was born, but after my husband died, it was just, I think he was a direct reminder of him. And it was just, we had a specific bedtime routine that we did. We had to do special routine with his trach when he had it. My son was still rocked to sleep at that age because nothing was normal with him. And everything was blown to pieces. And the stress that it put on me, at first, I really thought that, I hate to say, be one of the lucky ones that didn't gain weight with grieving, but I've always struggled with my weight. And so I kind of thought, well, I didn't really want to eat at first. And I thought, no, oh, great, I'm going to lose weight. I'm not going to eat, my health is going to deteriorate. And I went the complete opposite direction. I knew that my hormones were already completely stressed and just out of control after our son was born. I had already been told that I was in perimenopause at that point, and that would have been 29, 30 years of age that I was already told that. And so I rapidly started gaining weight. I rapidly started feeling, even simply going for a walk, my legs were super achy, felt like they were burning. I was having horrible issues with my lower back, locking up when I would just go to pick up my son and lift him. And I think that was definitely the point when I knew that I needed to do something, to slow down what was happening.
So, how much weight do you know off the top of your head, or do you think that you gained maybe through that time frame of like after your husband passed to like before taking the leap and like inquiring about coaching and joining
Uh-huh.
coaching?
I know I was in the 160s when he passed. And I had already, from the moment that I was dealing with a lot of stress from having our son, I had already gained roughly about 5 to 10 pounds from that. But I went from 160, and I believe that it was when I started this program with you last fall, I was at 219. And I know that I want to say that I gained 22 pounds in the first year, 160s to 180s, just from the first year after his passing.
Got it. So, you saw some weight gain, obviously, with everything they had going on, all those responsibilities, and with your husband passing away, dealing with the grief in both of those aspects, like you mentioned, the grief of losing him, and then also the grief of not getting that quote unquote normal, parenting or mother experience, like you mentioned.
Uh-huh.
And did you try anything on your own before, like, applying for coaching or, getting in the call with me or starting coaching? Like, because a lot of times people will try things like intermittent fasting or keto,
Uh-huh.
but then other times people just simply will have no idea where to start. So where
Yeah.
were you at in that regard? Like, did you try things beforehand, or was this like, hey, I'm going all in with coaching from the get go?
Yeah, I tried. My doctor was even when I was gaining weight so rapidly, it literally felt like I was gaining pounds overnight. But then again, grief, it's the weirdest time warp you'll ever be in. Time just will never be the same for me. And I remember going to the doctor in the fall. So my husband passed away in January of 2023. That fall, I had just gone in for routine blood work, and my doctor, obviously, she knew my husband. She actually used to work with my husband. And, she was concerned, as was I. And so we discussed going on Adipex, I believe is what it was called, weight loss medication. And I was all for it. I didn't know that there was any other way to go about it. I just thought, this is rapid, this is getting out of control, and I need to do something quick to get it to lose weight, to stop it, to stall it, to do something to it. So I went on Adipex, and I originally saw, I want to say it was like 13 to 15-pound weight loss almost immediately. Everyone told me that I would have a massive gain of energy. I did not. I did not have a gain of any energy. I was still exhausted. But then again, given my life, that's understandable. And so I was super excited. I thought that that was the answer. I thought that that's, oh, this is it. I'm on this med and it's making me lose weight. And then just as soon as I felt confident, I went the other direction. And I ended up gaining back that weight. And I think I went probably a good 10 to 15 pounds over what I started at. And so that was beyond frustrating. And I do know that after that, we did try a couple other mixtures of the different weight loss. There was another one, I can't remember what the name of it was. We tried, but I never did lose weight with that one. I just kept on going the other direction. And at that point, I think even my doctor was completely she was stunned. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to tell me, other than the next point was injection. I was absolutely, I didn't want to do the injection. I don't do needles. So I stopped at the weight loss medications and I never tried anything else.
Mhm. So when you finally filled out the coaching application, where were you at? Like, what were your desires as to why you even filled that out? Obviously you'd gained this weight, but when you were like, okay, this is where I want to be, months from now or 6 months from now or years from now, what were your motivating factors? Were you uncomfortable in your own skin? Was it more about physically, were you dealing with health issues? Was it physically you wanted to be able to feel stronger to help your son more? What were the things that you felt like you were experiencing at the time that were kind of, I guess, limiting your life, the negative things that you're like, okay, I really want to do this
Mhm.
because this is where my life will improve if I do lose this weight and get in better shape?
Yeah, it definitely kind of a mixture of all of that. I definitely had gotten to the point as I was gaining weight. I've always, like I said, I've always struggled with my weight, but never to a point to where I felt like I need to do something about it. When I was gaining weight so rapidly, and I was finding that I was having to buy, the next size up in clothes. And then it was like, oh, two more sizes up in clothes. And oh, let's just switch to wearing stretchy capris and sweatshirts. And I kept on telling myself that, I could hear my husband's voice in my head telling me that I was beautiful no matter what. But that once upon a time that would have solved this, but this was something more. I was disgusted in what I saw in the mirror because I think I knew that some way, somehow, I could fix it. I had no idea. I struggled with that for months. I have the back issues. Like I said, my son's only getting bigger. My back issues only seem to be getting worse. And I kept on seeing Katie on Facebook and post after post after post. And I watched her for what seemed like forever and just wishing that I could do that. Cause I guess I didn't think it was possible. The weight kept on climbing, and then I'm being told that I'm not just perimenopausal or menopausal, I'm postmenopausal at this point. I would have been 34 years old at that point. My body was completely confused. It didn't know what way was up at that point. And I didn't know if I had all this blood work done and trying to figure out if I thought if maybe there was something that I could point to, like, this is exactly what it is that's causing you the problem. But everything was was just saying it was normal, thyroid and my hormones, just was postmenopausal. I even started hormone replacement therapy, and it was beyond beyond frustrating to just look at myself in the mirror and just not be happy with what I see, beyond frustrating that I didn't even know where to start, tracking food, trying to work out, trying to walk. And then it was finally when I debated messaging Katie multiple times, and then when I finally did message her, I just broke down in tears. It was just one of those, like, something's got to give, something has to help. But I was really looking for a quick fix, and that just didn't exist.
Hmm. Yeah. So what was it that made you break down in tears so much when you reached out, to just the fact that, like, okay, I finally got to the point where I need to ask for help and I need to do something like this. And it was like the frustration of, everything built up that, oh, this is, one other area that I need help with, or like, maybe tell me a little bit, just like what you felt like really sparked that, just all those emotions that came with even just reaching out to her.
Yeah, I know. I have definitely unintentionally built up a survival instinct. My life over the past 10 years has been beyond chaotic in everything that's happened. I think unknowingly I just have taught myself that because everything has been so bizarre and chaotic, that I'm going to fix things. I'm going to do it myself. And I think the moment when I finally, I discussed it in therapy multiple times with my therapist, and she kept on telling me, Brittany, like, if you have this person that that can help you with this, like, why aren't you reaching out for help? And I had to get over myself and stop thinking that I could do it on my own, because I had tried and I failed. And so when I reached out to Katie, I think there was a little bit of, I was beyond terrified that if I joined the program and if I didn't see any results, what was I going to do then? Because if I kept on going in the wrong direction, nothing was more terrifying, because I kind of viewed joining I Thrive as like my last attempt. Like, this is one-on-one coaching. This is somebody who's going to be able to give me direction. What if it doesn't work? And that was absolutely terrifying to me, because for years of counseling, being told you should probably just reach out to somebody for help. Well, what happens when that help doesn't help you? It was scary,
Hmm.
very scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get like where that would come from, because, if you have this thing in your like back pocket that, like coaching, right? And you're always delaying it. You could always keep leaning on, well, if push comes to shove, I can always do this and probably see success. And it's almost like you can
Yeah.
hold on to and grasp hope, like, for
Uh-huh.
the continuous future,
Yeah.
without actually doing the thing, because you're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, well, like, this will always work. But like you said, if you were to join coaching and for whatever reason maybe it didn't work or you didn't follow through, and if that was the last resort, you would feel like, well, now there's no hope. And like, you
Uh-huh.
can suffer as long as possible sometimes, as long as
Uh-huh.
you think there's hope for
Yeah.
something better to come, with something else. But once, you try that thing and maybe it doesn't work for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it can be really scary. And maybe some of it too was like, and I could be wrong on this, but, you've had a lot of areas in your life over the past 8 years that you've kind of lost control with, with
Uh-huh.
everything that happened with your son and everything that happened with your husband, a lot of areas
Uh-huh.
where you lost control. And like the weight loss and the diets you were trying and this and that was like one area where, if you were doing it completely on your own, it's one thing that you at least can kind of still have, like, you have control over. And like, obviously you have control over your results, like you're showing up and you're executing. But hiring a coach, you kind of do relinquish a little bit of that control of, okay, I'm going to follow their guidance and their recommendations of what to do. And maybe part of it, was that too, which can be scary for some people. So like, when you filled out the application and like we got on the call, talked about coaching, talked about the details, like, were you scared after that point to like invest and sign up and get started, or after at that point were you like, I just have to do this and just go all in? What was your headspace, at that time point?
I definitely feel like the initial shock that my body seemed to go through, the scare, the nervousness, I feel like it did lighten by the time that we got in the call and we spoke. I felt more confident. I think it was just fear of that point of, how hard is this going to be? Is it going to be attainable? I don't have the easiest life for attainability. I mean, I'm literally living for two people, and that's complicated in its own right. And so, knowing that I had such a big goal, I think it was just, yeah, still that fear, but I felt more confident at that point, more excited to see what all I could do with your help at that point.
Mhm. So as you got started with coaching, obviously, like we've gone through different phases so far, and
Mhm.
you've gone through the priming phase, you've gone through a few fat loss phases
Mhm.
and the diet breaks. And, like I mentioned in the beginning of this, you're down like 45 pounds
Mhm.
so far in just like
Yeah.
9-ish months, which is incredible progress
Mhm.
so far. And obviously, like your progress pictures have changed a ton.
Mhm.
What other things have you seen so far as like changes you've seen within yourself, either physically or mentally, along with obviously like the weight and the scale being down?
The amount of confidence that I've already felt. I mean, I remember being like, 60 pounds is my goal. And I remember us saying that, well, might take us a year and a half. And I mean, I know things have slowed down a little bit more, but just that initial, even getting down to 199, like I didn't think I was ever going to see 199 again. I just how quickly the weight came on. I really, really just thought that that number was unattainable. So that was probably the absolute biggest confidence booster. And to just start seeing the changes with my body composition and to see, Katie always goes and, shows me the before and afters and just always is ranting and raving. I'm just like, I can't stop looking at them. Even just the first few of them, like I look back at those pictures and I just think to myself, like, it's really no wonder why my legs were burning and on fire when I was going for a walk. Like I still get sleepy, but I'm so much more energized. And one of the biggest things besides just the weight on the scale being down is I love the fact that I don't feel like I'm a slave to food anymore. That has been absolutely I love my sweets. I love my chocolate. I love Reese's. I will never give those up. And I love the fact that I've been able to control that. I've been able to control, I'm not snacking anymore throughout the day. I feel full. I feel like if somebody says, "Hey, Brittany, do you want to go get ice cream?" And I'm just really not in the mood for ice cream, I just say no. Like, or I can eat it and I don't feel like I'm out of control. Like it doesn't send me on a wild binge to go, because that's what my life used to be like. I know being at home with my son after, working since I was, 16 years old, it was a very weird change because I was sitting beside a kitchen all day long. And all I had to do was, go open the fridge. And well, when I'm bored, snack. When I'm sad, snack. When I'm stressed, snack. And I don't do that anymore. I love the fact that I have learned so much with nutrition and I struggled at first with really being all in my head about how to set up a meal. And Katie said to me, like, you're making it way too complicated, and now I have my go-tos. I know what I need to eat, when I need to eat it, what snacks are lower, and I've always been a very goal-driven person. And the second that you guys gave me a stay between this and this, I'm staying between this and this. And I feel like it's just been such an amazing education to me to not feel like I am held prisoner by food. That's been one of my biggest takeaways.
Yeah. And I love all of that. And what do you feel like specifically, if anything, has really unlocked that for you of not feeling like a prisoner to food? Because that's one of the most rewarding things I hear clients say after being in coaching for a while is that they feel this like freedom around food. They don't view food as black and white or good or bad necessarily, and food doesn't feel like it has that much control over them anymore. Like, yes, they still live their life and enjoy, ice cream here and there or a donut, but it doesn't feel like something they just don't have the control over anymore. What aspect do you think has maybe helped with that? Has it simply been like the education around food, or has it been like the flexibility of, as long as you're eating mostly whole foods and hitting, your calories and protein adjustments we make, like you see fat loss happening. So you realize, hey, like just one cookie is not going to ruin all my fat loss. So you mentally don't make that association of, okay, I was off my diet and ruin everything. Like just some examples, but like, what do you feel like for you, has helped that part of it the most?
It definitely took me some time. At the very beginning, I was very confused, and so were most people that know me, because everyone around me is just very confused as to, what I'm allowed to eat, the fact that there's no restrictions. And I think it was months of allowing myself to have the Reese cup, to go get the ice cream. And it was one of those, my method of thinking has always been with anything, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of a thing in my life. And so I would eat something that I felt like, oh, I don't know if this is really what I should be eating. And then it's like to see the pounds continue to come off. And then it did teach me that this isn't bad. Like, I can still go and enjoy my chocolate. I just probably don't need to be eating an excess of chocolate all day long, and understanding the portions and understanding, what the better foods are for me, the whole foods. And I was not eating anywhere enough protein. My protein intake was super low. And it's, just that feeling of being full and not having that, oh, well, there's chips in the cabinet, I want to go snack on them. Like, I don't, but it was definitely weeks and months worth of me having to go back and forth with myself of, should I have eaten that last night? And then I'm down another pound. And it was just little by little I realized that it's not going to hurt me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a difference in how full and satisfied you feel when you're eating a diet that's really low in protein versus a diet that is higher in protein and maybe even higher in fruits and vegetables. Like, it's funny, like, we had my daughter's birthday party this past weekend, and I always experience this on days where there is like a birthday party or something, because whatever food is usually available, usually it's a little bit lower in protein, like the foods that I'm eating at these birthday parties and what I'm used to in
Mhm.
a meal. Like maybe there are some protein options available, but maybe they're higher calorie, higher fat protein options. So I have a little bit less of them. So my protein's always a little bit lower on those birthday party days, like
Mhm.
on that actual meal. And I always find I feel like I ate a lot, but I still feel like this like weird kind of like full, like I'm full, but also at the same time, like I feel like this craving to eat a little bit more because that protein isn't, keeping me full.
Mhm.
But I think the big thing that you said was you experiencing logging your food correctly, having a Reese cup, maybe not every single day, but like having it somewhat regularly, but still seeing fat loss because most of your diet is still whole nutrient dense foods. But most importantly, you're including it within your calorie and protein budget, still
Yeah.
eating the right amount of those things for your body, where you then put two and two together, the pieces together, and realize, oh, I actually can have, a small portion of chocolate pretty regularly. And if I'm doing those other things, and logging it correctly and fitting it in, I actually can see consistent
Mhm.
fat loss and the body composition change that I want to see. And that was like, for me, one of the big things that really changed the way I view about food back in like 2015 when I started logging my food and learning more about nutrition
Mhm.
is I kind of experienced that same thing where like if it fits your macros was like really blowing up and you had all these like fitness influencers doing
Mhm.
like their full day of eating videos and they would eat like a bowl of sugary cereal, every single day,
Yeah.
but still be losing body fat. So I'm like, okay, let me try this out and see if it actually works. And, it did. Like if I was eating the correct amount at the end of the day, logging it accurately with still most of my foods being whole nutrient dense foods, because
Mhm.
you don't want to fill in all of your calories with protein powder and candy all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But like that extreme, probably not going to get the same results. But like having a Pop Tart a day, but still having, your 4 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables, your lean protein sources, still hitting the proper calories and protein at the end of the day. you can still lose body fat while doing that. And it's one of those things where if you don't experience it, you kind of hear it and you're like, yeah, yeah, that's what people say, but like, does it really like work like
Mhm.
that? But then when you actually experience it like you did, and so many
Mhm.
other of our clients, it does like just really open your eyes and makes you view food so much differently. And it's like, because those foods don't have this like bad label on them anymore, it does kinda, like, almost make you more free around them where, like, you
Yeah.
almost, like, don't want them as much, like, you're okay with choosing not to eat them or choosing,
Yeah.
like, a smaller portion because you know, "I can have chocolate tomorrow and still lose weight," so you don't feel the need to binge on chocolate today because it's
Yes.
something you can actually have, every day in a small, moderate amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
It's definitely been I mean, I tracked years ago, tried tracking years ago, and it was miserable and I hated every second of it. But honestly, there's something so much different, and maybe it's my mentality, maybe it's just where I've been and how badly I wanted to lose it, that it's different this time. But I'm certainly glad it is.
Mhm. Yeah, and usually when I talk to people, and this might be the case, for you, maybe not, but most people who have experience with tracking in the past and they had a bad experience with it, it's usually because of like a few things. One is they were trying to aim for way too low of calories, maybe. Like they were
Mhm.
tracking, but they were tracking trying to shoot for like 1,200 calories. And yes, your tracking experience is going to be horrible if you're trying to shoot for that low of
Yeah.
calories. Also, number two, a lot of times people will shoot for like a specific number of 1,200 versus
Uh-huh.
having like a little bit of a range helps because now
Mhm.
you're not so like obsessed about one number. A lot of people will
Mhm.
also try to track and they don't really know too much about nutrition and they'll be like, I'm going to try to track my protein, carbs, fats, and be within like 2 grams of all of those macronutrients. And that's like way too detailed and obsessive for most people. Like most people don't need to do that too.
Yeah.
And then also like the diet breaks and the higher calorie maintenance days that we've done without, like throughout tracking, even in your fat loss phases, those things
Uh-huh.
help to make tracking feel easier too, because now you have some more, flexible days within there.
Yeah.
I would love to hear like what are some specific things, like very specific and practical things that you do to make sure that you like still hit your nutrition goals and your step goal and your workouts too, despite obviously everything else you have on your plate, taking care of your son, because a lot of people feel like they don't have time or the mental energy to maybe plan their meals or cook at all or go to the gym or even work out at home or get your steps in. But obviously, like you're making it happen with maybe more direct caregiver responsibilities, at least than most people probably have. So, what are some specific things that you do that help you to hit those, with everything else you have going on?
Yeah, I know when it comes to like nutrition and my diet, I've kind of been all over the place as far as sometimes I meal prep, sometimes I don't. I just have made sure that I've learned over the months like what some staples are for in my fridge and in my pantry. Like these are the things that I know are good snack foods for me. So if I just have a little bit left calories, I'll use one of those to bump me over into the goal I need to be. There are certain things that I've just had to learn to kind of make adjustments, maybe not eating as much physical bread, but doing more like lavash bread or like keto buns or, because I jokingly say to my family all the time, I used to be a massive Mountain Dew drinker. I have drank Mountain Dew for years and I actually gave Mountain Dew up before I started this program. But anytime we're out to dinner and people say to me like, "Oh, you're not getting pop." I say I would rather eat my calories than drink them. I mean, it's just I drink water. It's just what I've gotten used to. I found some good, like, low calorie, like flavor packets for water. But I just found, having those staples to where if I'm not necessarily meal prepping something in advance, I have go to things and it keeps me on track with my diet. Now, as far as like the working out, the lifting sessions or, getting cardio, I am one of those people that I have to get it done in the morning. If I don't get it done in the morning just because time gets away from me, because if my son isn't feeling well or if we have I just get it over as soon as possible in the mornings because it's like I don't want to say it's hard because it's not hard, but getting the hard part out of the way. And then I have the rest of the day to just do what I want to do. My steps are going to be good because I'm always moving around with my son. And it's like, well, lifting's done. I know I'm going to get my steps. All I have to do is worry about my diet and I'm good. And it's just one of those, like, I can just take a deep breath and know I'm covered. I've done it, checked off the list.
Absolutely. What are some things that you or tell me a little bit about your conversation with Katie of overcomplicating your meals. Like, what kind of things, what did she tell you, and how did that make it click? And how did that maybe change how you think about putting your meals together potentially? That I'm assuming, has helped and made things seem easier.
Hmm. Oh, it has. It has. It really, I mean, at the very beginning, I was just super struggling because I didn't really understand what was what, what's a complex carb, what are these, what are those. And Katie had sent me some resources that gave me a list. And she told me, she said, all you need to do is just go down through there, pick one of the complex carbs, pick a protein, pick a vegetable or a fruit and or both, and that's your meal. And that was one of the hardest things that it took getting into my head because I struggled so bad at the beginning. And it was true. I love potatoes. So get a potato or, a regular potato, a sweet potato. I love rice and my noodles. I just had to switch over to finding like a whole grain, whole wheat noodle. And once I made those connections and figured it out, it was easy from there. I just remember being so concerned, and she just was like, Brittany, you are making it way too complicated. And she was right. It was much, much more simple. I was just
Mhm.
really thinking too hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that most people do, like, especially when they start coaching, I don't know, that like everyone's always looking for like recipe ideas and different,
Hmm.
like, fancy food ideas. And they think they need to become like a chef in the kitchen to like put healthy meals together and
Yeah.
everything. And it's just, it can be much more simplified. Like you said, you have these three categories: a lean protein. Here are maybe, 5 to 10 different food items to maybe choose from that category. Here are your fruits and vegetables. Choose, one or two to add to your plate for that. And then here's your, healthy, high fiber, primarily carbohydrates. Here's, 10 different options there. Mix and match and just plug those puzzle pieces
Yeah.
together. And like, yes, maybe it's not going to be like a meal you see on Pinterest that looks really fancy that your favorite fitness
Yeah.
influencer is making or something. But like, that's because they probably enjoy the more extravagant cooking. They probably enjoy putting those fancier meals together. They probably have the
Hmm.
time and energy to do so, where
Yeah.
most people, they need things that are quick and simple to
Yeah.
track and easy and that get you to your goal. The hardest part should be just planning out, okay, like your meals and the portion sizes to hit your calories and protein. The hardest part shouldn't be just throwing meals together. Sometimes my meals look like just a plain chicken thigh that I had cooked in advance. I'll throw some like oven baked potato chips on there and just have like two kiwis. Like sometimes that's what
Yeah.
my lunch looks like. And it's
It's
like,
really, really
that is
just
not
random.
pretty. Yeah. Like, it's not pretty. It's not fancy. It's not a
Mm-mm.
meal I'm probably gonna like take a picture of and put in a cookbook or something.
Yeah.
But it helps me to hit my targets and it gives me the nutrients still that my body
Hmm.
like needs and wants. There's this concept that I've seen on social media going around of just like people showing their quote unquote dog food bowls. And it's basically just like rice and ground beef and like some kind of veggie they just like mix together. But like your meals most of the time for people who are in really great shape and stay in great shape look that simple, and it's just as simple as putting that together. Like I said, the hardest part or the most complicated part shouldn't be just, okay, what does a meal look like? It should
Hmm.
be, okay, am I actually hitting the right calorie and protein goals for my body? What adjustments do I make to my calorie and protein targets based on if I'm in a fat loss phase or a diet break? Like, that should be the most complicated part. If there's anything that's complicated about it, not like, what
Hmm.
what should this meal look like? If you follow that
Yeah.
format, you're setting yourself up for a lot of success in that way.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely one of the hardest things to get over because I did kind of have this expectation that I had to meal prep and my meals had to look well put together and, make sense. And I've had a family member ask me what I had for dinner, and I said, I don't even want to explain it to you because it's just so off the wall random. But when my son's sick and I don't have time, it's just a lot of throwing random things together. But hey, if it tastes good to me and it works, it works. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I love that you mentioned too that you did really well is just making sure you have things on hand
uh-huh.
that when you don't have time to cook, you can just throw together. Like I talk to clients about this all the time because it's really important to be able to do that so you can throw those things together and they're things that you can still track accurately and they help you to hit your calorie and protein ranges still. So you can stay on track, still see progress versus every time you don't have time to cook, now you're like going to a restaurant ordering out,
Yeah.
and now you're presenting the variable of it being harder to choose lower calorie options a lot of times. And then also you're presenting the variable of those things like restaurants, fast food places, when you try to track those, you are just throwing in a lot of estimation in there because they
Uh-huh.
could be cooking with a lot more oil than you think or a bigger portion size than you think.
Uh-huh.
So, like having those even really simple things and making a meal out of Greek yogurt, rice cakes, and fruit, like that could be a
Yeah.
dinner. I've had that dinner so many times when I haven't felt like cooking. And, I can log it accurately and see
Uh-huh.
really great,
Yeah.
progress that way.
Yeah.
So as we kind of get close to an hour, like what are some things that you would say to, someone who has been on the fence about maybe applying for coaching or doing something like this, and they're thinking about maybe getting started?
I mean, definitely, I know it's an investment, a big investment, but it is so beyond worth it because not only from what I've learned just about nutrition and what my diet needs but understanding and learning things about lifting and proper ways to lift and just being able to build up confidence in myself. I feel like it's one of those things that I was really struggling reaching out, but it was one of the best things that I've done for myself just to show myself that look what I've done. I can look in the mirror now. I'm so happy with what I see and I'm not even done yet. So definitely if you're sitting on the fence and if you're not sure, I can tell you it's the best decision that you'll make for yourself because it's been the best one for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm really glad you were able to get on here too and share your story because it's just like a really good example of most people are just capable of so much more than what they give themselves credit for. Like you going through all of everything that you've gone through over the past 8 years and, being able to do this still with all the responsibilities you have with taking care of your son too is just really incredible and really inspiring. And it's just also a really good reminder for all of us of like sometimes like the problems that we have in our life and we think that they're true barriers to achieving something great or seeing the success that we want
Uh-huh.
really aren't as big of a barriers as what we like think they are. It's just in our
Uh-huh.
head. And also a good reminder to just really be grateful for like your current situation too because you don't know like what anybody else is going through too. Like
Yeah.
and your story kind of reminds me of my situation a little bit where and I'll get to why. Like they're not similar, but I'll get to why. The point of it, I'm dealing with this hernia injury, and I'm gonna have surgery on it in a couple months. Sounds like it's gonna be hopefully a pretty smooth surgery, so I think it's gonna go well. But I
Uh-huh.
haven't been able to do like squats and deadlifts in probably a couple of months now since I realized I have it. And I'm not going to be able to probably squat and deadlift for a couple of months after the surgery, too. And just my training has had to change. Haven't been able to lift necessarily as heavy as what I want, have to be careful about things. So I've been kind of limited. And, it's been kind of frustrating at times. But there's this person that I know from just like social media and I actually met him in person like once and he posted an update like last week where he had this freak injury. He was going swimming, jumping on the diving board and I believe he tore one of his quads and then also his other patellar tendon like went way up on his quad or something. He had two big injuries to his legs and just wearing casts his whole entire legs. Can I think just started to be able to bend his knees now. Can't walk, hasn't been able to exercise for I don't know how long, probably like a month at least now. Freak thing and he was in the pool so like he could barely swim himself up with just his arms to, keep himself afloat. And it just like I saw that post, I'm like, wow, my situation is not nearly as bad as his. Like I can still go for runs. I can still lift weights. I've still been able to do some leg exercises and still push myself relatively hard. And he has been just like, it sounds like, just sitting in a chair or on the couch or in a bed for the past like month, like literally not being able to walk at all, and has a
Yeah.
long road to recovery. Like I said, he just started being able to bend his knee. And the reason why it kind of reminded me of your situation is like there are a lot of times where we feel like, the responsibilities we have to taking care of our kids maybe get in the way of us being able to work out or do these things nutrition wise, or maybe we don't have the help from a spouse that we wish we had, or this or that. And like, not to like put labels and say your situation is much worse than theirs, but
Yeah.
you do have a lot of unique challenges. I think you would admit that like most people
Well,
probably
very
don't
much so.
have.
Very
And
much
it's
so.
like, if you're listening to this, I hope you take that and not think it's a jab to you, like I'm trying to like knock not you, but the listener down and be like,
Yeah.
why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Like you don't have it as bad. But also it can be really inspiring to see somebody who is struggling with probably a way less ideal situation than you are, still succeeding, being down 45 pounds in less than a year and still going. And
Uh-huh.
just proof that, like, hey, this process should and can work for me because this other person who is in a much worse spot is seeing a lot of success too. So, any like last kind of words or last piece of advice maybe you want to just throw out there? Anything that you wanted to, say after my rambling before we wrap up?
Yeah, it's definitely been a whirlwind, and it's definitely taken a lot of getting used to, and trying to format my life, because like you said, I do have a very unique situation. But I'm so proud of myself for taking the leap. I sat there and cried that night when I messaged Katie, and just was so nervous and so afraid, and it's like 45 pounds and still going. And best gift I could give myself, and not only for myself but my son. He needs me. And quite literally needs me for every aspect of his life, and I'm just happy that my health has already improved and turned around so much by what I've already accomplished. And I want to be able to, hopefully, God willing, live to a ripe old age to where I can bug him. And I'm super proud, and best decision I've made, for sure.
Yeah, I love that so much. Like you said, not only for you, but also to be able to, take care and be there for your
Mhm.
son as much as possible too. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for, coming on here. I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know, 6 months later, you're back on here again, sharing, even more that you've accomplished. So I know Katie, has been felt really blessed to be able to work with you so far. And I know I'm super grateful to have you a part of the community and everything too. And just excited to see, what's to come too. So I'm sure if anybody has any questions, maybe about Brittany's experience with coaching, I'm sure she'll, be open to sharing that with you too. If you want to message her or whatever it may be. And yeah, I think we'll wrap up here, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.